All right, so I wanted to quickly go through some resources that we have available for math, science, and SBAC on Edulastic. For math specifically, since that is one of our focuses for today, there are tons of TEIs. You just go to the Math Tech Enhanced TEI tab and you'll find things like expression evaluator, fraction editor, range plotter, drawing response, and each of these questions are equipped with a little 1 or 2 minute video right in the app. So if you want to try something new and you're not really sure how to set the question, you'll know how to do it within a couple minutes. So that's one of the really great things is that if you are new to Edulastic, you'll probably want to start with some simple question types before you dive in too deep, so you don't overwhelm yourself. But once you start beginning to explore, there's a whole variety of questions and directions you can go with the tech enhanced items that you're using. There are also a bunch of TEIs that are good for science. So classification, graphing, multi-part, drag and drop, label and image. Those are some popular science question types that are commonly used by teachers. There's also drawing response, numeric entry. So if you want students to be entering how many units as well as labeling those units, that would be something that you might want to use. So all these things kind of go hand in hand with SBAC prep. So when you log on to Edulastic, you can look in the item bank and also in the assessment library for SBAC released items. So these are the state test items that have been uploaded into Edulastic for you to use to give students practice. We have an article on our blog that talks about SBAC practice success skills. So if you're looking for different tools and strategies, so preparing students with keyboarding, with getting comfortable with questions, those are all things that you'll find in the blog posts as well. The nice thing about the SBAC questions on Edulastic is that they mimic the look and the feel of the SBAC as well. So I'm going to show you a couple of the different question types and what they look like in Edulastic. So this is an SBAC practice assessment. So this is not Edulastic, this is SBAC, and this is what it looks like with the little calculator or the little numeric entry form right here, and also an open response. And then this is a passage based. You can kind of flip back and forth and see what they're asking over here with an image in it. You can accomplish the same thing in Edulastic. Oh, we're not there. Hold on a second. Let me backtrack. Okay, so then this is what a science teacher that I was talking to from Sugaring calls a check box question. This is a multiple choice. Sorry, I blanked out there. Multiple choice, the most common question type, and then also drop downs and other images. So that's what SBAC looks like. And then Edulastic looks really similar. So we have multiple choice here and similar options at the top to go next or previous or visit other questions. And then you also have those text entry, and this is also passage based. So you can enter those passages, and again, it's very similar to what students do on the SBAC. So when they finally get to testing day, there are no surprises. They understand how to maneuver around an online test. Here's the exact same question, and this is it on this side in Edulastic. And then on the other side, you can see it's the same question on the SBAC platform. So it's asking you what Parker's distance from home is, and it has a little graph underneath. So that's an image that was inserted. And you can see that and then answer in the check box. Same exact setup over here. And then the same end page, so students can see what questions they had and whether they need to return to any of them. Right there. So here the student had flagged a couple questions they wanted to look back at and need to revisit some unanswered questions. So those are just some of the tools that you see when you use Edulastic and how it compares to what students are seeing on the state test. And then finally, there's progress tracking information. So here's what you see when you give an assessment. If you haven't seen this yet and you're new to Edulastic, then you're in for a treat because it's always really fun to watch those student results roll in. And then when you go to the reports cards, I think this is just one click away on the menu up here. You can go look at performance by standards and see how students are doing. So this is a way to track whether students are are ready and have mastered what they need to know for the state test, whether it's SBAC or LEAP or some other state test that you're trying to prepare for. So these students are doing pretty well, it looks like. They're in the green. A little bit of yellow down there, so maybe some more remediation or intervention is needed. All right, and that's a quick overview of some of those features that you can find in Edulastic. And now we're going to shift over and turn the spotlight on our guest presenters today. All right, so now we're going to hand the baton to Dina. Dina, want to hop on, introduce yourself, and get going? Thanks. We can't hear you.
All right, good?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello, I'm Dena Morosin. I'm a 4th grade teacher in Oregon, and this is about my 4th year now using Edulastic. So I was just going to kind of talk a little bit about how we use the Edulastic data to help our students prep for the SBAC test. So I think, again, the first thing is just the practice alone on the computer with the technology enhanced questions gives the students a really large advantage on the Smarter Balance test. We have some schools that don't have access to technology, and just the fact that my students get to practice with technology enhanced questions every day increases their advantage on the Smarter Balance test. They don't get stuck on those questions. They know how to do drag and drop. They know how to do matching. So I just think that just that alone is a huge advantage for the Smarter Balance test. We, as a grade level team, have created a 4th grade assessment that assesses the majority of the priority standards for math in 4th grade. We give that same test in fall, winter, and spring to show the progress that the students are making and any holes that they have with the standards. That test data we actually use for our student growth goals also. So I don't know if all states are still doing this where we have to write individual growth goals. And so we actually use our Edulastic data for our student growth goals. So again, we can track it all year long and keep track of the standards that we need to keep teaching or reteaching or revisit, and the standards that our classes have already mastered, so we can kind of move on. We also use Edulastic for all of our unit tests. And again, with the premium account, it collects all that data, so it just keeps showing me which standards we're mastering and which standards we really need to revisit. Again, just repeating what was said earlier, the data that we get from Edulastic is invaluable. It gives us so much data. It shows us class data. You know, it shows our lowest and strongest areas for the whole entire class. So if the whole class bombs a standard or a question, we, can look at that data, but it also gives us really valuable individual data too. So we can pull apart what each student needs, and that helps us focus our small group instruction. So we can do our RTI groups, we can give individual instruction, and we can also send home specific homework for those students since we know which standards that they are, that they need extra support in. Our team has also just recently, one of my co-teachers just said the other day, she's like, we would love to stop giving our district mandated assessments because we honestly don't even look at that data anymore. We completely rely on our Edulastic data for both math and reading. And so we still kind of have to give those district mandated assessments with this, whether it's the STAR, DIBELS, or whatever, but they just don't give us data like Edulastic does. So, and then you can go to the next slide, and same thing, I kind of have some of those reports that we use. So this is our 4th grade assessment that we gave in the fall. And again, you can instantly see that numbers and fractions is our lowest area, which of course makes sense because fractions is a 4th grade standard. So they haven't learned that yet. But again, it really decomposes the data so that we can see which standards that our kids need to work on. And this is class-wide data. So it shows me where my whole class is at. And again, they're pretty strong in numbers in base 10, but I still need to obviously review it because we want to be higher than 63%. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Thank you. And again, this is another report. It's just another way of looking at the data. But what it shows here is each of the domains are clustered together. So I can really see the first domain being numbers in base 10 and the specific questions that were attached to that standard. And again, I can see my average score for the class, and under that, numbers and fractions. So again, this really helps us when we go to make our intervention groups, or if I have time during the day to assign specific skills to specific students. And then I think there's one more slide. So this is an individual student report card. And again, what we do with this as a group is I can look at this one student and see, okay, she has mastered these 3 standards. She definitely has not mastered these 5 standards. So the week before we do Smarter Balance testing, we do a math boot camp. And so I could look and say we have, so this girl would definitely need to go to the fractions boot camp. And so one of the teachers does fractions, one does base 10, and one does the algebra. So we can look at the individual student data and see where the students need to go to their boot camp to get that extra support. So again, this is, just invaluable data when we can see this on individual students and what they need support in for success on the test. And I think that was all my slides. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I jump? Is it jumping around? It's jumping around 1 second.
Yep.
Okay, there we go. All right. Thanks so much, Dina. I like that idea of math boot camp. That's fun.
Yes. We actually got little camouflage shirts and everything for our math boot camp. So.
Seriously? That's awesome. Sweet. Well, hopefully your students will rock the test this year after they go through boot camp, or even before. All right, Kevin. So Kevin's up next, and he is a middle school science teacher from Oregon. So go ahead and introduce yourself and let me know if you need the slides changed.
Okay, hi, I'm Kevin Capps. I'm teaching at Ontario Middle School, and I teach science to 8th grade right now. I've had my students for 2 years, and so one of our biggest challenges is reviewing concepts that I've taught in the past and trying to get through our new concepts. And so Edulastic has really helped my students a lot. The way that I use it in my room is I grab quizzes from the test bank and the quiz bank, and I post them as a 10-minute warm-up every day. The students are expected to work as hard as they can in that 10 minutes on their warm-up and reflecting on anything that they missed. I try and put no pressure on them as far as getting the question right or wrong. It's not graded for me, but I want them experiencing the questions and working through them. So they can even look answers up, they can collaborate, they can ask me for help. So for that 10 minutes, there's a lot of good discussion, a lot of really good practice and review going on. And I stress to them that it's not graded. It's something that's going to help us review and bring back those concepts that, we maybe learned 3 trimesters ago in preparation for our state testing this spring. Okay, you can switch. One of the ways that I do is I share it through my Google Classroom stream. So as the students come in and log on to their Chromebook, they go to the stream and there's an announcement for what quiz I want them to work on today. And so on the screen here, you can see I posted an earthquake quiz or a volcano quiz. And those are things that we went over last spring. So it just gives them a really good refresher every morning of things that we've talked about before. Okay, Skip. I also put on a couple examples of questions that I thought were really good that my students were practicing last week. So here's one of the drag and drop. This one was for Punnett squares. And so it was fun to watch the kids as they, reviewed some of this stuff that we had worked on a little while ago. This one was really interactive. They were trying all the different traits and, the recessive and the dominant traits. And some of them would get them wrong and they'd talk about it, rearrange them. And then it was fun to see them see the result at the end, and then they could go back and and see why they missed it or see why they got it correct. Okay, you go forward. Here's one of the check box questions that I really liked that was part of this quiz. So they had to compare dominant and recessive traits. And once again, it helped them review that concept as well as got them collaborating, and there was a lot of discussion on which check should be marked. I saw a lot of the students doing it several times until they felt like they had it just right. So I thought any of those type of questions where they can really work through things together, I think is very helpful for them. Okay, go ahead. And one of the main things for me is the student input. And so I just put I had a few of the students write how they felt about Edulastic. And you can read through them all. But one of them that I liked was the second one is by one of my ELL students. And she said, ever since I started Edulastic, the memories from elementary are coming back. The questions are very simple with the press of a button. It also helps you know what questions you got wrong and right. So the next time you get that question, you're basically prepared. Looking at the questions and knowing that the answers are hidden in the back of my brain are ready to come out and help. Thanks to Edulastic, I am ready and prepared for whatever test that comes in my way because I know I'm ready. So what I found is it really has given the students confidence, just practicing answering tests and just remembering some of those concepts that we haven't covered for months. I've had this Edulastic for about 5 weeks, so I'm still really new to it, learning a lot, but it's really easy to go to the test bank and just type in whatever standard or concept you want to review and just quickly post it, and all the students can come in and work on it. So it's been really helpful so far for my kids. That's it.
Great, thank you, Kevin. And I really like that quote from your student. It's really cute that she has the answers in the back of her brain waiting to come out. Really sweet. Cool. Oh, here we go. I don't know why I just skipped ahead. So here we are. We have 3 panelists today, and we're going to start with Michael Delaney. So Michael, why don't you introduce yourself briefly, and then you can dive right into what you have to share today.
Okay. My name is Michael Delaney. I teach 6th grade science at a magnet school in Louisiana. My district a number of years ago decided that students that performed at a higher level should have the opportunity to see where their potential could take them. So they created magnet schools, and they're technically public schools, but they have to test in and meet certain requirements to stay and whatnot. So I use Edulastic primarily to meet that level of rigor that my administrators expect the students are able to do. Plus, our state test, the LEAP, it has those tech enhanced questions, drag and drops, multiple select, multiple part, and things like that. And so because I teach 6th grade, we want the students to really get used to the idea of answering those types of questions before they get to the massive text of the test at the end of the year. Okay, so basically I use Edulastic again as to show my students, or to get my students familiar with the types of questions that they're going to see on the LEAP test. Also, I really like Edulastic's questions that other teachers have written. The rigor and the application of knowledge style question fits typically in with how I want my students to approach the questions, approach the content, and it aligns with the NGSS a lot more too. And so I use Edulastic to gather data to guide my teaching through the next unit and that sort of thing. So any question, and I'll show you this here in just a second when I share my screen, but any question that students do poorly on an assessment gets reviewed for errors. Maybe the question was written poorly, or maybe it was hard to understand, or whatever the case may be. So if the vast majority of the students do really poorly on the question, then obviously there was a problem with the question that I need to address. And any standard now with low performance gets retaught and then used as a focus quiz or bonus or an additional question on the next assessment. I'm going to show you basically what that looks like right now. So I'm going to share my screen. Bear with me. This is the first time I've ever done this. Do you want to continue? Yeah, I hope so. Okay, I hope that worked. Okay, so this is just my Edulastic. As you get in, if you've used it before, this is a familiar screen to you. If you've never used this, then this is what happens when you're looking at the assessment details. You can see that this was a unit test that we've taken, and you can see all the standards that I've used to test, to use this assessment on. And then, okay, I'm just following my notes. So one of the things that I like about Edulastic is, so in Louisiana, we've gone to the idea of phenomenon, and basically just real world scenarios where the students have to apply the science. And one of the things I love about Edulastic is as you're creating those questions, you can put videos as questions, or put videos, like you can have a question, watch the following video and answer da 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 da. Okay, so I mentioned the questions that have the big problems. So this was a test that they took. This is their not the most recent, because they literally just finished a test today, but this was Unit 3. We did it right after or right before Christmas break. And if you can look, and again, if you've used Edulastic before, this is a familiar screen, but you can see here, question 14, there was clearly a problem. There's clearly a problem. And so what I would do is I'd click on it and it would bring up that question, and I could go through and I could say, okay, is this a content issue? Is this a teaching issue? Is this them just being lazy and not thinking issue? And in this case, it was a them just being lazy issue. And so unfortunately, they just had to suffer the loss of that 1 point. And what I did then was I made it part of my bonus. And so when we come here to the bonus, this is a bonus for a different for the test they just finished taking. And so when that question, I would find a different question that mirrored or asked the same basic thing, and I would put it on one of these bonuses and then ask it of them after the next one. So then I also look on now, if you get the premium account, you get access to the reports here. And so this was that same question. I could go back through and I could look at, okay, what was this question here? And I could click on it, and if it should open up the question. Of course, it's not going to. Let's see what this one's. Okay. But basically, I could say, okay, this was an issue that they were having. Okay. And all right, so this is a question that a lot of them got wrong. So now I can go back and I can say, okay, this was something I taught them repeatedly over and over and over again. And so this is going to be something I'm going to have to reteach, unfortunately. If we look at this, look here, now I can look here and I can say, okay, this question, okay, obviously there's a major issue with this question, and I've already gone back and looked at this one. And this particular question, it was kind of confusing. I kind of added it last moment, and then it obviously backfired. So what I would do is I could either throw out this question, or more than likely what I'll do is come up here to the Express grader, and then just, since it's only a point, just go through and give them the point, it's a point. It's not going to make or break them. And then, let's see, and then again, I would just add it to the bonus if I needed to, but I use it primarily to, hold on. Okay. I use it primarily to gather data on how much, what they're learning, what they've mastered, and that sort of thing. I really hope all that worked.
Sweet. Thanks for showing us the live dashboard and what you're looking at as you're preparing your students and working with them. If there are any questions for Michael, then you can enter them into the chat. If you have more questions about using and navigating Edulastic, there's the Edulastic Help Center, which answers all your questions. You can enter in a question, you can explore by clicking on different options to troubleshoot or get help. There's also the Teacher Training Hub if you are looking for articles or videos or upcoming webinars. And then finally, the Edulastic YouTube channel. That's where we're going to be posting today's recorded webinar, and also where you can find previous webinars and a bunch of really valuable resources and videos. All right, questions. So we're going to open up for questions. If anyone has any questions, you can enter them into the Q&A, or you can enter them into the comments. So questions for any of our presenters today, or about anything that you might be thinking about in regards to using Edulastic to help you prepare your students in science or math or for SBAC. I see one thing in the Q&A, but I can't read it because the way that my computer is sharing. Can you show us how to write science questions that have the phenomenon example on the left in a series of 2 to 4 questions on the right side of the same page?
Ileana, I think I can handle that one.
Perfect. Do you want to share your screen and show, or do you want to talk it out?
Well, I'll share it.
Okay. Great.
All right, so basically the way it works is when you come into the question bank, you end up, what you have to do is you click on, under ELA Tech, click on where to go. I just saw
up in the corner, left-hand corner, passage space. There you go.
Yeah. And what you end up having to do is you click and you type in your thing. Okay, so the phenomenon that we just dealt with was roller coaster. So I asked him a question about how do roller coasters, if I can get my fingers to work, how do roller coasters utilize the and KE to ensure a thrilling experience for riders. And so what you would do is you would just, you would click here, down in here under your text editor. This is where you can edit or insert multimedia here, which is basically a video or a picture here. And then, right, if you click on multimedia, right, this is where you would go to YouTube. You would find the, so let's do that one. YouTube.com, and then it will on posters, and then you would find, random, and I'll just assume my internet apparently is be slow. So okay, I want this one. Can you click on it, and I'll pop it quick so it doesn't start playing. These little dots, you can get that or somewhere.
The share button.
Share button, thank you. If you click the share button, it will give you the embed code. And so you would click this. You could just
copy the URL right there.
Yeah. But basically you would just copy the URL. You come back here, paste it, and hit insert. And then there's your video. And over here, you can either select questions that have already been written, or you can author your own, and you can add as many as you want until you're satisfied, and you just add it to your assessment, and you're done.
Yep.
So
awesome.
Very, very.
Thanks for demonstrating that. Does that answer your question? Go back to sharing. Who was that? Siobhan, I think. I can't see. Oh, I can see the Q&A now. Sandra. Okay. Hopefully that answers your question, Sandra. Yeah. So once you enter the passage and you have that title there, then you can go ahead and add questions to the side. You can add a multi-part question, and from there add other questions within that one pane. So I encourage you to stay connected with us. Follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, or Instagram. Twitter is a great place to go for updates or other tips or tricks or articles that we're sending out. We hope that you enjoy what you learned today and that you're able to take it home and apply it at your classroom. Also, a big, huge thank you to Dina, Kevin, and Michael for joining us today and taking the time to share how they are using Edulastic in the classroom. It's really awesome to hear how it's being used on the ground, and I think that's probably the best parts of these webinars. So thanks everyone who spent your Wednesday evening with us, and we will post this on our YouTube channel.